And welcome to the Pancake Parlay, episode 108. I'm your host, The Don, and I'm here with chatters, like always. How are you?
I'm good, sir, and I believe this is episode 109. Is it
See,
not?
here's the thing. Obviously, last time we recorded, we did have a little bit of malfunction, and to me personally, I felt like it wasn't 100% like a full proper episode. I would say kind of cut off, and I kind of did my own thing.
I
So
see.
so what I did is the
Mm.
previous episode I started calling it episode 107.5. So
Oh,
so it was a
I'm with
half of
you.
episode, which is I guess which is kind of true. It kind of pretty much was half the episode. So
Hmm.
I'm officially gonna call this 108 and go from
I
there,
see.
rather than
Ah,
just be like
you
like
see, you see how out of the loop I am of
you're
what's
just like well,
going on.
it's like who knows anymore? Who knows? But anyways, I'm dubbing this officially episode 108, and yeah, we're just your podcast that just talks about general pop culture, movies, TV shows, video games. We got a lot of news to talk about, and we got a lot of reviews. So let's kind of jump into it. So obviously 2018, not 2018. Sorry, my bad. It's 2020. That's how bad of a year it is. 2020 has been a very interesting year, especially for entertainment, and I guess in the world context of things. And so we've kind of had a lot of delays for a lot of movies and things like that. And one of those is, I guess, a lot of content out there, like the big blockbusters, have been delayed. And one of them has been Mulan, and this has kind of been the canary in the coal mine since it was probably, I guess, Disney's slated most recent film. And for that one, it was supposed to come out already like two or three times by now. So what they're doing with this is a very interesting approach. They're bringing the Mulan live action film onto their streaming service, Disney Plus, and it will be $30 for the movie. And obviously, you got to pay for the Disney Plus subscription on top of that $30. So this is, I guess, a very interesting, I guess, way to do it. And I guess in general, the real question is once this does come out, we want to know how successful it has been, and if more, I guess, movie studios are going to copy them. So, in general, like, what do you feel about this? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? What's going on with this?
Oh man, like it's kind of it was really huge news when it initially came out. And and the thing is, like, it's coming out September 4th. I think that's the confirmed date that Mulan is coming out. $30, right? So it's already a pretty high price point. I don't know how much tickets are in America, but presumably it's like kind of like less than that.
Well,
But
in Australia, it's what, like, I'd say $20 for like a ticket to see one, like give or take, like maybe $21. But yeah,
yeah,
I think in the US,
I
I've
think it's
heard like
low.
it's been like, I don't know, $15 or $12. I think I've
Yeah,
heard.
yeah. I think yeah, exactly. Like, our equivalent for everything, like here everything's like expensive and also, like the exchange rates and stuff like that. But, with $30, like, some people could argue that, hey, like this is how much it costs for me to just buy Mulan like a month or two later, when it comes to DVD or digital or something like that, right? So that's going to be the first kind of point of reference that people are going to first think. It's like, well, should I really like it's like you're paying $30 to essentially rent this movie to watch once, right? For more or less. So that's going to be something that people are going to have to weigh up. Like, oh, should I just rent it now or should I just wait a month later? Especially for Mulan. Like, I guess some people are like, ooh, super waiting for Mulan. Like, I mean, look, if you've listened to us before, like you'd know that, I'm not really a big fan of these kind of live action remakes of Disney movies. They seem to be like subpar by comparison to their animated equivalents, significantly so. Except for the fact that this new Mulan movie does seem to be a lot different from the animated movie, so maybe that might like bring a lot of appeal for people to watch, like, ooh, just how different it is. Especially given that this particular movie was supposed to be aimed at the Chinese market, and China isn't like everybody's best friend at the moment. So, again, it is like something that Disney was initially trying to capitalize on from the Chinese market, and maybe they might not be able to get as much from either their domestic or international markets for this movie, which is why they've made the decision to be, oh well, we'll put it out for $30. They're losing a lot. Maybe they make up some of the money because there'll be multiple people watching the movie, so it's kind of like you're paying for two. If tickets are $15 in America, maybe you're paying like 2 tickets to watch this movie, but multiple people would maybe be watching this movie together. So they're kind of losing out, but then they're also not paying, AMC and the theaters, any kind of uh, middleman money, so they get a lot more of the profit back. So a lot of this is going to be dependent on just seeing how many people purchase this, and also the fact that you have to watch this through Disney Plus. So you need so it's kind of like in America it would be like 36.99 if you don't already have Disney Plus at minimum to watch this movie.
Mm.
um I think it'll definitely be changing, like a lot of the it, like industry people that I've listened to or like read about, like they've talked about like, yeah, this might be like the beginning of the end for like modern day cinemas, because it might lead to people being like, oh well, now I have the expectation of watching Mulan, direct to direct to whatever
Streaming,
app,
like
yeah,
because
streaming
DVDs, everyone.
application. Yeah, DVDs, yeah. Whatever, direct to streaming or on Netflix, or via like over here it'd be like Village or Hoyts, or in America it'd be like AMC and stuff, like whatever kind of application, like maybe that's the direction that they want to, that the market expects these movies to be, because they've set the trend, because of people are stuck at home due to the pandemic, right?
Mm.
Um,
But I also see this as an interesting way, and it's like I feel it can go any kind of way. I
mhm,
think in general, what I think might happen is if the hardcore people really want to see it, for example, um, I think there'll be some sort of scheme where they're just like, in the future after the pandemic kind of dies down. I think what might happen, especially with the movie cinemas and things like that, they'll be like, oh yeah, for like a month this film will be out in cinemas. So if you want the full like experience, like theater system, the big screen, that type of feel, you can go there, and then after a month, it'll go to streaming. And I think, and then it'll cost like I would say a semi probably premium to get to that pricing. I would say, but that's because because I think what they want to do is obviously I think the main thing is obviously piracy when it comes to a lot of this stuff on the streaming service. So they kind of want to be
mhm,
like, we want to get the people who do care about this product and do care about the film and get eyes on it, and pay that money. So I think like I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of do a fusion of it, where they're just like, oh yeah, for 2 weeks or a month or whatever it may be, it's in the cinemas. You can get that cinema experience, and then after that, we'll release it digitally on our own platforms, and you can get it direct from us. So I think that's kind of maybe the future of it, possibly, because I feel like a lot of this, because I think there's been a lot of news of like the cinemas being like, especially in the US, being like, oh, we're out of business, or we're gonna suing or come back, and these different types of things. I feel like it can kind of go either way. So I feel like the model of I guess releasing big blockbuster films is it's gonna change, and obviously no one quite knows exactly what is the best model for it. But yeah, even on top of that as well, you could also say that for TV streaming as well, that's a questionable thing as well. A lot of people are kind of getting rid of the binge model, and they're doing a week by week basis stuff as well. So I think
mhm.
in general,
which which
especially
by
when
the way,
yeah, especially when we consume entertainment, it's definitely going to be changing.
which like funny that you mentioned about the whole weekly model release of TV shows. This is something that we actually talked about, like I want to say like maybe one or two, whenever what is it, Titan season 1 came out, right? So
Hmm.
maybe 2 years ago now. They were saying that, oh, we're releasing this like weekly, which kind of blew people's minds, like how could they release these things by week? We want the whole thing out, right? But now, especially with Disney doing it with like the Mandalorian, now people have the expectation of these things coming out weekly, because again, it drip feeds it. It allows Disney and all these other kind of subscription services to kind of extend how long somebody has to keep their membership in order to watch it like on release. Like sure, you could wait like 10 weeks and then watch all of it at once, but if you want to
You want to be in the conversation.
yeah, you want to kind of watch it as it goes. It's a good chuck and change when you release it on a week by week basis. And yeah, I think movies are probably going to go. I think it might, like you said, it could go either direction, and I think it's very much dependent on like like general market forces, right? And I think in general, people prefer convenience, and so things are going to move towards things being more convenient for the viewer, right? So going to a cinema, and like having to like sit at a particular seat, and then have to pay copious amounts for like popcorn and stuff. Like while it is definitely like a pastime for us, like I think it isn't. It's very archaic by comparison to how we view things now. I think like in America they're doing, in order to try and promote people to come to the cinemas, they're doing like a 15-cent tickets to go watch like, but you'd go watch like classic movies like Star Wars and Back to the Future and stuff. I doubt people would necessarily go to watch those unless they're buying up every single ticket in the cinema at the moment. But it is a strategy that they're doing, and I think that's probably the way that you'd want to sell cinemas going forward, if they do move towards a digital landscape, which it seems to be going, which is trying to provide that classic form of cinema experience, being like, oh, hey, look at this. We've got like these massive screens, and we've got popcorn, we've got like service. That's how they have to promote the movie now, because I don't think ultimately, same thing with like a drive-in cinemas, right? Like part of the experience of going to a drive-in cinema isn't necessarily the movie you're watching; it's the actual experience of going into a drive-through. Drive-in.
Hmm.
And I think that's going to be ultimately the way that they have to promote themselves. Like you want to watch this movie because you want this experience. But I think it will probably lead to the closure of a lot of cinemas going forward. But maybe not. It's not going to happen like rapidly. It might just happen with
It'll be
time,
like a
right?
it'll be like a transition. That's why
Yeah.
that's why I feel like there are certain people, like for me, I'm one of those people, like for example, like I saw kind of Dunkirk. I'm like, no, but like I saw that in an IMAX. There are people like
Hmm.
out there, like I think
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, there are hardcore people, like I would say theater people, or like people who really care about the craft.
Cinephile.
Like yeah, there will be people
Cinephile.
who would like, I want to get the big experience type of thing, because it's like
Yeah.
I remember when Dunkirk did come out, I think there was a meme going around where it's like the way Nolan intended. And people were posting on the weirdest ways they were watching Dunkirk. And
Oh
some
yeah.
person was like, "Oh yeah, I'm watching it,"
On
and
a
like,
phone, right?
on a phone, or like on the airplane, like movie
Oh yeah,
service. It's like, this is,
yeah.
so I think like there are people out there, like who are like, "Oh, I want the best sound, the best like video quality." So like I feel like more or
I
less
think.
the cinema change will be focusing on them. So that's why they're probably bringing out like classic films, like kind of like the acid theater around here, where they're like, this is like
Hmm.
the big stuff we want to see, like 70 millimeter, for example. But like the general audience will kind of be gone, slash more or less will just be like, I'm just gonna wait until it's on streaming. And that kind of transitioned in such a way where it's almost like it's kind of funny how like Avengers Endgame had the biggest gross of all time, and that
Hmm.
was kind of the biggest film. And now probably no film is probably going to get to that point anymore until, like, I don't
Yeah,
know, maybe
probably
something
not.
does change. So it's kind of like it that happened last year. Imagine if it did happen during the pandemic.
Oh
Things
man.
would be very different.
Yeah, I mean, look, Marvel hasn't been releasing any of their Marvel content this year. I don't even know if I haven't really kept up with the Black Widow news.
Well,
And
I
then
guess the
when
real
that's
question,
coming out.
the real questionable thing is now, it's like, this is probably the biggest slash clean break of like being in like a break of a quote unquote being a consumer for Marvel, for example. Like,
Hmm.
used to have 2 films a year, or sometimes like last year was like 3. So now it's like we're like there's like maybe like 1 film coming out this year, or it might not come out. I'm not quite sure still. But the real questionable thing is like, Avengers Endgame seemed to be the 100% kind of like, that is the cutoff, and then there's this new transition. I do wonder if people are going to still kind of rock up and be like, oh, like be in the news cycle for, I guess, the hype factor of the superheroes is kind of died down, unless it's a very specific, maybe type of one, instead of just consuming
Hmm.
everything that you kind of see, be like, it's all connected, all part of the universe. I am very
Yeah.
curious on, I
I
guess,
I
Marvel's
think
plan moving forward.
I think people will still want to do that. They still want to. I think again, it'll depend on the quality, right? If the new phase of Marvel is like complete trash, like yeah, people will just watch all the good shit and then ignore the bad shit, right? But I think Marvel does have like a way to kind of make even the kind of dumb superheroes seem really appealing to the general audiences, and that just comes with the Marvel quality. You can't if Marvel does one thing, it's make things appealing to the general audience, and that probably, and I'm sorry, not probably, definitely is part of the reason why they've been so successful as they've been so far. It's funny that you mentioned like IMAX earlier. I think that is a perfect example of the kind of demographic I think eventually all kind of cinemas will have to follow the lead of, um, and try and appeal to the general audiences. Because again, it's like it's same thing with like regular TV, right? Like people, it was more bigger in America because it had like cable TV and stuff. But we over here, we have like Foxtel and general like kind of channels here. It's like, why would you watch Friends on Channel 10 or Channel 9 or whatever the hell it's syndicated on now, when you can just watch it all online on like Netflix or HBO Max or something without any of the ads and with more convenient functions for you. And yeah, like I don't know. I think much like how all like modern TV has to try and appeal to try and have exclusive stuff on TV to get people to watch. It's got to be the same with cinemas, and I don't know how they're going to do it. We've seen it happen with like Trolls 2 or whatever. Like that had like a digital and like cinematic release for that movie, and it was like really successful at doing that. So that might be something that we might see some movies do as well, like have like reduced ticket prices or same ticket prices, but you have to watch it at home. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Mm.
oh, you toss up whether it's going to cost you $20 either way, but you have the choice of going and watching it at home or going to the cinemas and watching it, but the price is the same. They might do some kind of modeling for that. It couldn't happen. Like at least Mulan is kind of like a good film to kind of test trial it on, as opposed to something like a Marvel movie, right? It's something that they can kind of be like, oh, if it does poorly, they can just blame it on the coronavirus, right?
Yeah, but
Or
I think the real questionable thing is like what's really funny because they did a Mulan, which I would say can be like really successful. Like if it was released in the box office and everything was normal, it could have been
mm,
really successful. Or at the same time, it could have been a semi dud.
mm-hmm.
The real questionable thing, and I always bring it back up since it is like Disney. It's very weird that like they didn't trial this with like New Mutants. Um, like because that film is kind of like a very big question mark. It's been delayed so many times. I'm still kind of hyped for it because it is a very new take, I guess, on a superhero genre where it's a horror based thing. But it's very weird that they tested that with Mulan, which is a semi flagship thing, rather than just like, yeah, just do it with New Mutants. We don't really care.
I
Like
think
that.
I think
That's
it's
the questionable thing.
because I think it's because New Mutants is like a Fox property, right? So they're kind of like sort of like semi decoupling a lot of themselves from Fox properties, and just kind of like, oh, we're just going to silently release this out. And it won't have a lot of fanfare. And I think New Mutants is one of those films. Like I know you've been pretty excited to watch it, but I think the general like the kind of promote and the fact that this movie has kept on being like delayed quite a bit has kind of prevented it from being or catching the general eye of people. Whereas something like Mulan is like supposed to be a test of, oh, this is something that's supposed to be broadly appealing to the general populace,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore it's something that they can use as an experiment to see how their future movies would look like. That's what I'd toss it up to. um, but yeah, I guess that's Mulan. Going forward, I guess
I guess in the future she'll make a man out of me. Who knows?
we'll see. We'll see. Speaking of, shows that, or like, I guess, shows that are coming up, so to speak. A show that I've kind of really liked, which I think is actually made by the same people who made like Avatar: The Last Airbender. I could be wrong about that though.
If not, it has a very similar style.
Yeah, or I think the main actor, the voice actor actually does the voice for Sokka in Avatar: The Last Airbender. But anyway, so Dragon Prince, which is I think a Netflix TV series based on books, it's getting 4 more seasons, and it will be finishing like the entire show on Netflix, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, like especially given that sometimes like things will just get like canceled out of nowhere. We talked about that like in our, I guess, 107.5 episode. It's really disheartening when you like kind of invest yourself in a show and it gets canceled. At least now we know with this show, it is getting its full season, and we get to kind of see the creative, you know endeavor in its entirety, as opposed to just seeing it halfway through, right?
Yeah, like
Um,
I feel like more what like studios and that type of stuff. They should be doing that all the time. Where it's like if it is
they
ending
should
it,
be,
or like they should at least give
yeah.
it even like a 1 to 2 type of episode thing, and just be like, just cut it off. Like I feel like that's probably the best option to at least give it some semi closure. Like I'm later on this episode gonna be talking about a TV show that did get cancelled, was with unresolved issues. But I
Mm.
feel like a lot of shows should do that, and it's like especially with Dragon Prince, I feel like it's a really immersive. It's good. It's a good kind of story, and I feel like in general, yeah, I think giving it a season to kind of wrap up everything, it gives it that freedom as well, and especially for something that's kind of like it builds up. It like I think the show pretty much builds up to a certain point where it's like, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. Like of course you want it to kind of conclude. So I'm at least happy that Netflix is doing that, because obviously like last week or last episode we kind of talked about Sabrina kind of ending. They do have like the last season will be like 8 episodes, and I think that's semi wrapping everything up, which is at least they're kind of giving it I guess
Closure.
that some closure with some of the characters. And yeah, that's the thing. More studios should do that basically.
Well, funny that I mentioned Avatar, because that's actually a news topic we have here. That the original creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender have left the Netflix live action adaptation of the show, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, like as much as like Netflix is doing good in one area, apparently they're not doing so hot in another area. So they left, and that's kind of been, a bit of like, oh, like as a question as to why that's the case. According to Fandom Wire, they have an exclusive with multiple sources inside Netflix, and they said that there's like several reasons why the the creators left, and one of the reasons was budget, right? So
Mm.
they wanted a bigger budget, and which kind of makes sense. Like if you that's the kind of like beauty of animation or animated TV series. Like I started watching Star Trek Lower Deck, and that's kind of like it's kind of like a Rick and Morty spin on um the Star Trek series. It's not that amazing, but like the animation's pretty cool, and stuff that happens in it would definitely be much harder to do in live action, because it would need like CGI or something like that. And so it makes sense for something like. Did you watch the M Night Shyamalan Avatar movie?
No,
Yeah, no.
I think I spared myself from that, so I'm good.
Okay, okay, good. So it's not just me. So I can't say much in terms of the quality of that show. Sorry, that movie. But like from what I hear, it's not that great. And I would imagine like yeah, like they don't want a repeat of the bad kind of smell that movie left, and they don't want that in the new series. And so having that budget is kind of important. So I can definitely get behind that being the case. Another one they claim, according to these insiders, was the diversity of the cast. Now, they wanted um, so apparently they like Netflix wanted the ability to um, uh, have an open cast, so have like everybody have the ability to kind of cast from like all nationalities, um, whereas the creators didn't want to whitewash the show, because I think that was a big problem with
The
the M Night
the movie, yeah.
Shyamalan movie, right? And because I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, it was whitewashed. Like, why did you have this character as this?" Which I can kind of get. Like, if you watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, there is like a lot of different kind of nations out of there. Like, the people who are supposed to be like analogs for like Inuits, people who are supposed to be analogs for, I think, like the Kyoshi people, like the Earth people, like they're like supposed to be like Japanese, whereas you have the Fire Nation, they're supposed to be kind of like they have the Chinese aesthetic. Yeah, so
And I
like I
think,
can definitely.
I'd say, I think that's why I think I heard a thing where like Avatar's semi-banned because it has parallels between it for something. I found
Oh,
that
really?
funny. Yeah, I think in China it's like semi-banned because they're just like, oh, like this is the analog for us. We don't like this.
Okay. That well, I mean, look, I'm not surprised. But it's a bit of a shame because again, like I don't think like Avatar: The Last Airbender is such a great show.
Well, yeah, it's such a great show, and it's like great characters, great situations, and I feel like because I'd say it's kind of semi first and foremost, I would say kid show, but it does have that good mature type
You
of
can yeah, you
aesthetic
can
where
watch it as an adult. Yeah.
yeah, like I feel like it's almost like I don't know if you ever watched the live action version of like Speed Racer that came out like 10 years ago, but I feel like it kind of has that embracing of like, oh, it's kind of a kids thing, but it's also kind of semi mature. Like you can kind of it's that good balance, and I
It's like
think
The
that
Simpsons.
yeah,
Like
where I feel
yeah.
like yeah, it can tackle multiple audiences, and you don't feel like it's dumbing it down for the kids, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like 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 The Simpsons, you can just kind of watch as a kid, but then it just has stuff for adults too. I think probably like modern Simpsons is more aimed at adults than younger kids. But when I was watching Simpsons, like it tended to be more like to aim towards kids for the most part. But yeah, like so there's that, and then the overall tone. So apparently Netflix wanted a more darker tone for the show. And they wanted to kind of like age up a lot of the characters so that they could have quote to create darker mature tone with more romance, sex, and blood. So that was another reason why apparently the creators kind of disagreed, because they wanted to kind of still make the focus of the show aimed towards like a more lighthearted or family friendly background,
Mm.
right?
That
So
that is yeah. I could say like there's probably two like parallels to this. I would say, I'd
mhm.
say like this kind of feels like what is it like DC's Titans, where Titans is much more mature. It's probably aged up a bit. It's like because I'd say the original Teen Titans from like 2006 or whatever it was 2003. That's very much kind of kids. It's kind of that same tone where it's kid centric, but it's kind of mature at the same time. Whilst like I'd say the live action Titan show is very much like, oh, this is like actual like mature, and this is definitely not for kids, I would say.
Mhm.
And I think on top of that, it's like my general take on it is it's like you already kind of have a mature kind of fantasy like type of thing, and that's called Witcher. So that's why
Mhm.
I am very curious of like, did Witcher like and the success of Witcher, they're just like, oh, audiences want more of this, so we want more like darker stuff, we want more blood and stuff like that, we want
honestly
this.
Honestly, I just think it's just part of like Netflix's like DNA and algorithm, right? Like they just look at this shit and they're like, let's see what's popular. I mention it all the time. You know, I always mention the Netflix algorithm. They just look at what people like to watch, and then they try and base their shows. That's why a lot of Netflix shows kind of sometimes feel like really cookie cutter in a way. It's like, oh, it's like this, but it's like this movie, but it's like a show, or it's like this show, but it's a movie, right? Like a lot of it is just them kind of swapping back and forth of like characters and shows and scenarios, and it all comes back algorithmically to them based on people's users watch time. And funny that you mentioned The Witcher. Apparently there is a prequel series coming out called Witcher Blood Origins. And it's a 6-part live action limited series, which is pretty cool, and set like what is it, 1200 years before like the current Witcher series, so it can kind of again, I don't I haven't read any of the Witcher books or anything, so I have no idea like what this is going to be about. Have you read any of the Witcher books? I don't
Yes,
remember seeing them.
I've read all of them. But even
Mhm.
then, like the I'd say as far as it goes back, it goes like all the stories all are kind of about Geralt. So what I would assume it is, and I think because I've done some like auxiliary reading about kind of the world and things like that, since obviously it builds the world. I think back at I think what the series is going to be about, it really is about the I guess war between kind of the elves and kind of the
Mhm.
humans.
Ah,
Because
yes. Okay.
so I think that's because that was kind of like I would say probably the original one, because I think the world of The Witcher is it is I would say very political in its kingdoms and things like that, and
Mhm.
obviously Geralt where like, he's supposed to be like neutral as fuck. Same with the witches, they're just like way to kill monsters, nothing else.
Yeah.
So I think the original like it's kind of like you even say like a Game of Thrones type of thing where it's like the Targaryens and how everything kind of it's about the shifting of the landscape. I guess I guess the world and how it kind of split and how like there used to be a lot more fantasy creatures in the Witcher series. That's why the
Mhm.
witches were came to be, because there was a lot more monsters, a lot more kind of like a magical type of stuff around there, and then the world got muted because the humans made these like the witches came around and they started to kill all of them. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like this, and it's like it's going to be definitely a new take, and they can very much open up to whatever, like new I guess adaptations of it almost, and kind of they can kind of do a free reign of it. It's kind of like what is it, Knights of the Old Republic, where it's kind of like they kind of got this bigger free reign to kind of do what they want to do in the
what they
world.
want. Yeah, and I think also it's going to be the original writer of the book is going to be having his hand in helping the creation of it too. So it's really cool when they can kind of do that kind of stuff. So again, Netflix, they do some good, they do some bad. They're all just trying to see what they can get out there. But I think ultimately we'll be happy once these shows come out. And another show that we're looking forward to is The Boys season 2, and it got confirmed for a season 3 as well. So that's kind of crazy.
Not many shows do that anymore. It's like I remember that used to be like I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago. That used to be like we're getting a new season straight away. But now I think like a lot more people are cautious of what they release. But like I feel like Boys, I'd say first season has very much been a hit. Not quite sure about season 2. We'd have to wait until next month for that. But yeah, I feel like obviously they're confident in what they have. And obviously at least it can, if it does get cancelled or like the second season is really bad, they can at least like close off with the season 3 of sorts. And I feel like Amazon is very much I guess ramping up their streaming service, because like I think a few weeks back as well, the one where they hunt down Nazis in the 70s called Hunters, they got renewed for a season 2. And I'd say like Amazon is I think getting up in the space. Like I think like this year's been pretty good for them, and I think like they've got good IPs, like especially moving forward. They got the Wheel of Time TV show. They do have the Lord of the Rings TV show as well. All this type of stuff. True. So they're putting a lot of money in their original content. So I'd say probably in the next 2 to 3 years you'll see pretty much a heated debate between, I would say, Netflix, HBO Max, and Amazon. I think those are the top 3 that will probably come into the future.
They seem like the top 3, like in terms of like things that people watch, right? Like and Disney Plus, obviously, they're going to be a big.
But I feel like for Disney Plus, it's still kind of a concept, I would say. I feel like they're kind of stuck with their like, Disney Plus is only like PG related content type of thing, and it kind of restricts them. But they do have their Hulu service. But I'm not quite sure of like. I feel like they've got a lot of good stuff. We just have to see good content.
Well, yeah, I mean their IPs are essentially Marvel and Star Wars at the moment, right? So once they kind of get that particular ball rolling, they'll be doing really well. And what's it? Because again, people are hungry for content, and I think with people stuck at home, now's the best time to release streaming stuff, because people are hungry for new things to come out. Even though there's plenty of old things to watch to keep us busy in the meantime. But speaking of things which are old but are now new, we've got some Halo Infinite news. Now, we were talking about like certain rumors and stuff last episode, but now it's kind of all come to pass, and we're getting the Halo Infinite game that we've been waiting for. Unfortunately, it also got delayed. So I do find it funny that they had the announcement, people were super, excited for it. There was a trailer. We had I forget the there was a meme about the brute.
Because we got gameplay, and I forgot what everyone's named him in the meme, but yeah, it's like it's like part of the screenshot you can see it's like very low def quality, and I think that's kind of the one of the main reasons why they probably delayed it, because I think Craig, good old Craig the brute. But yeah, like they delayed it because they were just like, I think like the feedback was gameplay looks good, graphics do not look good. I think that's what kind of came back to them. And obviously I think the original plan was they were just like, yeah, we're gonna release it, and then later on we're gonna do kind of a big patch that has the HDR and all that kind of high def graphic stuff to put onto your new console. And so they've delayed it. From what I've heard, a lot of the rumors of Halo and things like that is like, yeah, it's been a kind of a tricky development cycle. They originally wanted the plan being like, oh, you can kind of go everywhere on the Halo ring, and then instead they're kind of just like, okay, you can go to some parts in the Halo ring. It's going to be like segmented into like different, I guess, areas that you can go to. Obviously, a graphical downgrade, but obviously they're probably going to be working on like the next time you see it, it'd be like high def graphics. But I think in general, the main problem of this is like they touted this as their kind of launch product. This is the main reason why you get the Xbox Series X on launch days, because to play the new Halo. And definitely, like, to me personally, I think it was probably the best move. Because obviously you don't want a situation where, because I think like this generation has been filled with it, where like a big studio, they release a game, and then they patch in later like, oh, this is the real content that you were supposed to get. I hate that, and like, even though it's kind of sucks and it makes everything kind of look stupid and it kind of delays everything, I'd rather get like a complete product / package later on than getting something that gets patched in later on. So to me, I'm happy, I guess, for the delay. Overall, the gameplay looked good though.
Yeah, I mean, look, to quote, I think Shigeru Miyamoto, right? He said that a rush game is forever bad, right? So in part, like, it's better for them to delay the game and release like a good game. And it's the same, and I feel the exact same for a lot of other games that are coming out too. Cyberpunk, right? That got delayed, I think, twice. And even if they have to delay it again, I'm not going to be mad about it, because there's plenty of good games that are out there. There's plenty of new games that are coming out in the meantime, and people can wait. People are excited, especially given that, like, with Halo Infinite, it's kind of like supposed to be like a semi reboot of the series, to try and get people. Like, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that elites are like enemies again, right? Like, I haven't been following any of the Halo like deep lore at all. So, like, last time I remember, like, Halo 3 was basically them being like, oh well, elites are on our side now and they're not part of the Covenant anymore. So I don't know, like, do you know, can you update me with why elites are enemies again in this game?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
sure. Because I play all the Halo games and know
okay,
general much.
well,
From what my knowledge, if I remember correctly, because obviously it's based off the, I guess, worst Halo campaign, which is number 5, which is the most recent one. There was kind of like
okay,
a kind of a semi resurgence of like what do you call it, like a coup, where like that,
ooh,
like you go to like one of the elite home planets. And
mhm,
obviously you can kind of see the design choice. It was like open world, and you can actually talk to NPCs in the world. It's a
mhm,
very weird design Halo. So I think their clear design was supposed to be like semi open world, but they're fully going to realize it in Halo Infinite. But the whole thing was,
mhm.
you're on this planet. The elites were there, and kind of like the head of kind of elites was like, no, we're gonna stick with our humans. We're gonna do this thing. Everything's a-okay. And obviously there are some sets like factions
Like factions.
that
Ah,
were just
yes,
like,
yeah,
actually no, like, fuck these humans, like, we
we're
used to
gonna
be
do
enemies
our own
before,
thing.
let's do it again. So like in the campaign, you're like, you're there, and then like assassination attempt happens, and everyone's like, oh shit, you're gonna get out of the planet now. Like, it like, that's a cool
Cool.
moment, I think, in the campaign. But that's definitely what happened. The interesting
Ah, I
part is,
see.
yeah, the interesting part as well is, like, I'd say, is that brutes are back. You haven't seen brutes since like
Mhm.
Halo 3, so it's like you get their weapons
Ooh,
back, and you get I guess their very aggressiveness back. So I think that's very interesting, because I think because almost this game that, like, hopefully we'll definitely see more, but like, you got the elites, you got the original Covenant enemies, you've got
mhm.
brutes, which are kind of it's a very interesting enemy. I don't think the flood will be back, but definitely what you get. And also you're going to get the didact, which is the I guess the new Halo 4/5 enemies, which are kind of like these
Are these hybrids or
yeah,
something?
I forgot, they're the original, like, quote unquote makers of the Halo rings.
Oh,
The Prometheans, yes, the Prometheans, what they're called. So that's why they're kind of like, so you've got like 3 like, enemy types, and I feel like that's very interesting in the game, because I think what we haven't talked about in the gameplay wise, it looks open world, and it looks like you can target certain segments of the thing and you can level up stuff, where it says, oh yeah, you take down this enemy gunner turret, it gives you like this much experience, and it makes maybe the game easier or something like that. And that's an
mhm.
interesting take, especially for a game, and especially a first person game. So this pretty much is going to reinvigorize that, hopefully, where it's like, it's not level by level, and it's very much like this open world type of game. And that's why, like, I'm still excited for this thing. And obviously, it looks like a conclusion / end, I guess, to the, I guess, Master Chief saga. And as such, there's story, but the multiplayer is going to be free to play.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably the
Yeah,
best
that's
way to,
really cool.
yeah, and I think that's probably the best way to go, because the multiplayer space is so damn competitive these days. Not only do you have your Call of Duties, you have your Fortnites, your Battle Royale type of games. There's so many multiplayer games trying to get everyone's attention. And not only that, but to live and die on like a console not only on the X, because that's what you can get on PC as well, so it's a little bit more open for everyone as well.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like that's probably the best way to get money. Is to make the multiplayer free to play and keep people in that ecosystem to play, by seasons and getting different skins and armor types. I feel
Yeah.
like that's probably the best way moving forward for them to actually make up some money on it.
I remember when I played like Halo 2 and Halo 3 online, the main thing that, was pretty cool about the game was like the high customization of your armor and stuff. So that's definitely something that I can see translated over to a online Halo multiplayer format, a la like, some kind of battle pass or whatever that they want to implement. That could easily be something that happens, that it's in Warzone, it's in Fortnite, it's in everything. Everybody has it. So I can see it happening in Halo Infinite and people being all over it. Even I was like considering buying the Master Chief Collection because it's been a long time since I've played Halo, and I might as well play these games just to be like hyped up for the new game. Although they haven't released 5 yet on PC. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the only one that's kind of like straggled on. But like,
Mm.
yeah, you could, yeah, Master Chief Collection. Like, I rebought on Steam because I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
I like these games that like some of my like teenage years. I always really liked them, and like even just playing multiplayer, it's like the most interesting thing. Especially like I remember
Oh
like
yeah, on PC, yeah. It
yeah,
looks
yeah, and
crazy
on
on the
PC,
PC.
it's like it's because it's cross-platform and everything like that. And I remember, like, I think a few months ago, I was playing Halo 3 multiplayer. I forgot how much I really like that game. Is probably the one I played multiplayer the most on because it's like it is such a good balance of like I think the holy grail of Halo is the melee, the grenades, and the gunplay, and it mixes up so perfectly. And then with Halo 3, you've got the equipment, which gives you that little bit of extra like edge, where it's like, oh, you got the bubble shield, which
Yeah.
it blocks everything. And even in this game, obviously Infinite, they confirmed that you have a grapple hook, which
Hmm.
is it was very rumored, but they officially confirmed it. And it looks kind of cool. It's a piece of equipment. It has a refresh time, and in multiplayer, you have to pick it up.
Yeah, it's like
So
it's like a pickup, right? Like it's not a default thing. Because I think a lot of people kind of didn't like the direction that maybe the
Well,
newer
yeah, it was Halo. It was
Halos
Halo
went
5.
down.
Halo 5 because
Right.
Halo 5 was built from the ground up to be like a quote unquote esports game.
Hmm.
It had a spectator mode. It had these types of features where,
Sprinting.
yeah, it had these types of features where it's like, yeah, the sprinting's still there, and I feel like you have to play Call of Duty for that. Like, I feel like Call of Duty for Modern Warfare literally ruined everything because every first person shooter has to have like sprint now. Um,
Hmm.
but like, yeah, like I think like that's why Halo always kind of gets a semi bad rap because I think the problem is they're just like, okay, we want to do traditional Halo, but we have to modernize it, and it's like probably one of the hardest things to do because I think, and I feel like they struck that perfect balance of like you kind of have sprint, but it'll probably give you a disadvantage on it, and like, if we introduce the grapple hook, but it's not going to make mobility so quick. I think that was kind of the problem with Halo 5 is like if you're about to finish someone, someone could run around the corner and then just dodge the fight and then recharge their shields. But like
Hmm.
with previous Halos, since it was like very slow and more methodical, you'd have to really plan out what you were gonna do. So you could easily get sniped, for example. But with Halo 5, you could easily run around the corner and not get sniped. So I feel like this is probably the best approach. And I do want to see, I guess, more of the multiplayer because we haven't seen that yet. But it'd be very interesting, and I'd be 100% down for a battle royale version of that game because
Oh yeah,
it'd
that'd
be
be
so
cool.
cool to be like random pickups and like some guy gets an SMG and another guy gets a sniper. Like it would be, oh man, that's my game 100%.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It sounds interesting. I mean, all that's what they need to do in order to kind of get Halo into the kind of modern day, right? Like to kind of get them. And I think, look, again, if they need more time to do it, let them have it. I still need to beat 4 Halo games or 5 Halo games before it comes out, right? So I'm more than happy for them to take their time making it. Speaking of another game that I'm more than happy to take their time making, Cyberpunk 2077 have released a new trailer, and it's called the Life Path trailer, and essentially it kind of shows how depending on how you want to play the game, like based on your life path. There's either like you can be um, I think you can be like a corpo, you can be a street kid, or you can be basically like I don't know what to really call them. I think they're like basically like hillbilly, not hillbilly, but like
They're
uh,
like out of the main city type of thing. Like we're not doing that
yeah, yeah.
city life.
Yeah, and essentially, like, if you, depending on what kind of play style you pick, the game will be different, and how characters approach you will be different. Like, might have more advantages in one area than another, but then even just key characters, like even like your main, like your best friend in the game, you're introduced to them differently as well, depending on what life path you choose. And I think it's probably one of the coolest things in the game, and it will definitely allow for people to kind of come back and replay the game slightly differently than before. The closest thing that I can really that really comes to mind where something like this mattered was maybe like Mass Effect, because I think you could choose like how your character's like background was, like whether you were like a war hero or whether you were like a something or other. But like even then, like in Mass Effect, it didn't really matter so much. Like it would only influence like
They'll give you like a bit of dialogue, and it's like, and that was it.
yeah, that was it. Whereas with this, it's like the beginning of the game is completely different compared to another one. Because for me, like when it comes to playing multiplayer game, or sorry, single player games, like it's kind of hard for me to get back into a game like unless I really like it. Like like the Batman Arkham series, like I'll play that shit like over and over again because it's such a great series. But when I've finished a game, I kind of don't generally go back to playing it. But with something like these life path systems, like you can just play the game in a completely different play style, and then have completely different decisions, and everybody else's experience is going to be completely different. So I'm really looking forward to Cyberpunk, and this trailer has definitely reinvigorated my interest for it. What about you?
Yeah. I think I was excited for it when they first announced it, where it's like cyberpunk, and they had that like trailer with the woman and the the spiky things. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm down. I was
The
always
mantis
down for
blade,
like
yeah.
this idea in this type of world. And I think the more I see of this game, it's like, yeah, I'm glad that it pretty much got delayed, because yeah, this game was supposed to be out like 5 months ago. And I
Mm-hmm.
imagine like the type of things, even just recently, like even like CD Projekt Red, I think they just said, I'd probably say like a few hours ago, they just said they're not 100% happy with the combat of Cyberpunk at the moment, but they're working on it. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
it really comes down to like, yeah, the feel of the shooting and things like that, and kind of like the melee combat as well. It is really kind of striking that hard balance. But that's the thing; it has all these good features in it. It has, I would assume, a pretty good story, in-depth story. It looks beautiful. Um, it's pretty much one of those games where it kind of has the full package, and I feel like it kind of gives Bethesda kind of its run for its money, especially since they moved, because they used to do the Witcher series, but they're moving into a first-person kind of space. It kind of gives Bethesda and their type of ilk kind of a run for their money, almost, of like, if they come out with this and there's like little to no bugs, then kind of Bethesda really has no excuse to be like,
Excuse.
oh well,
Well,
like the world and bugs everything, like they don't have an excuse really.
well, yeah, well, that's mainly because Bethesda's like still using their old engine, right? Like it's a piece of trash. They just need to update whatever engine they're using to something else. But speaking of another game that we're both quite excited for, and we got a bit of a sneak peek at, is the new Suicide Squad game that's coming out by Rocksteady. Now, we've been kind of talking about it for the past couple of years about how there's like a rumored Suicide Squad game that was in production since I think the Batman Arkham Origins game. Like, there was a bit of a hint at there being a potential Suicide Squad game coming out from that in some capacity. But, people obviously threw it off as us, just rumors, who knows? And then, we obviously got like Arkham Knight coming after, that game too. So, yeah, it really threw up in the air. Like, where has Rocksteady been this entire time? What have they been doing? And we finally got an announcement recently, which is a really cool poster of what seemingly is Superman with a Suicide Squad like logo shaped in a crosshair on his head. And the game is known as, I think officially so far, as Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. So, you know, yeah, it seems like a pretty ambitious title for a pretty ambitious game. And I think if anybody's able to pull it off, it's, Rocksteady.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like, yeah, I feel like, aside from like, I think they did Batman VR on the PlayStation after like
Ah, yes, that's
Arkham
true. They
Knight,
did
but
do that.
that's
Yeah.
like, I just it's not a full game, and it's not the whole thing. So that's why it's like, what else have they been doing? And I guess we got the answer. I'm very curious, because like, I think the first thing is, obviously they moved away from Batman. I think they kind of told the story they want to do from Batman, but like Warner Brothers has a lot of different studios, so I wouldn't be surprised if a smaller studio like in Warner Brothers is like, okay, we also have another Batman game, or there's something because it's Batman, right? But I feel like
Hmm.
this is a new interesting take, and obviously I think the real I want to kind of see gameplay of it. I think we might see it next week when DC kind of has their kind of big kind of event reveal of all this type of stuff. I am very curious of what it's going to look like. Since it is Suicide Squad, therefore meaning it is a team, so it's going to be kind of like what Bat like all the DLC from what kind of the Arkham games kind of did, where it's like you play different characters, but kind of
Hmm.
maybe put that in the real world where it's like you can play Deadshot or you can play probably Harley Quinn, and
Hmm.
all the different types of I guess Suicide Squad type of members. I'm assuming it's going to be more akin to the comics more than the actual like movie itself, which is kind of cool. But either way, it's like you can play like Captain Boomerang. That'd be kind of cool, and have everyone
Yeah.
has different powers. Very curious about the story as well because from yeah, as you mentioned, it could be a hint of like maybe it's Superman, or it kind of looks like a evil Superman or Bizarro. So maybe that's
Well,
kind
I
of a
thought,
hint.
yeah, I think like yeah, people were saying that like maybe like the game is obviously called Kill the Justice League, right? But it could be like a different kind of Justice League or something like that. It
They
seems
can
like
easily do
very
like the alternate universe, like they jump to an alternate universe, and therefore meaning the Justice League in like Earth like 24 is like evil or something.
yeah, yeah, and like again, DC can kind of do because again, like very much like how they kind of uh wanted to kind of make it so that the Arkham Knight in the Arkham Knight game wasn't Jason Todd, Red Hood, but then it ended up being. It could very much be like the same thing where you think this is Superman, but it's actually Bizarro Superman, and maybe you're trying or like Superman from Earth 2. Oh, sorry, Earth 3, which is like the evil version of the Justice League. So it could be a lot of reasons why it's the case. I think like it would make sense for them to try and maybe kill the Justice League, but they're gonna really like capture them or kill all these other people, like because it'd be hard, you'd be hard pressed to like actually make a game where they're killing off Wonder Woman, right? Like I don't think they're necessarily going to do that, but I mean I'm very open to it, especially again if it's under Rocksteady. It's going to be good. And
Yeah, like
yeah,
like no,
sorry,
go
go on.
ahead.
No, I'm done.
It's like I'm done. I think the real question, but thing is, I want to see gameplay. I think
Yeah.
that and what type of game this actually is. Is it a single player game? Because my worry, it's gonna turn out like the Avengers game, which so far doesn't look good, doesn't look crash hot. The gameplay kind of
Mm.
looks whatever, and it's like kind of a looter brawler where you play the campaign over and
You
over
know,
again with friends and get stuff. So like
you,
that's my one
you
worry
know,
about this, since it's a team game, quote unquote. And if this is a game
yeah.
as a service where you have to play it over and over again to get better loot,
Mm.
that's that will put the nail in the coffin for this.
Yeah, and I can definitely understand the worry for that because I can definitely see that being the case because especially with the Avengers game that just kind of looks like what was that dumb game that like EA released that was like really
Anthem.
bad. Anthem. It just looks like Anthem with like an Avengers skin on it. And to be fair, that already does sound significantly more interesting than Anthem. I'll give them that. But at the same time, it like I looked at the game, like it doesn't look that great. The new Avengers game, like it just kind of looks like, okay, like maybe I'll get it like on a sale or something like that. But like it doesn't seem like amazing graphics, and the story doesn't seem that great. I'm not really a big fan of like the Kamala Khan character. Like she kind of seems a bit meh, and yeah, like it kind of seems like mediocre. And it does kind of look like these, kind of looter shooter brawler, Destiny style loot generating kind of games that I don't really care too much personally about. But I mean, if the gameplay is good, then I'll buy it. But we'll see going forward whether it's the same for Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. But speaking of DC content, they did announce the lineup of announcements and panels and stuff coming from DC's Fandom, which will be happening next week. I'll maybe just go through some of the new the new kind of interesting stuff that are coming out. So I won't tell you the times because I mean you guys can look this stuff up.
Also,
But
the
the
times
first
will
thing,
be different per different time zone, so there's no real point.
yes, that's true. Yeah, that's true too. So, and I think they're repeating it. So if you like kind of miss it the first time, you can watch it the second time. There's a bunch of crazy shit that's happening. But it's interesting. I'm glad that DC's kind of going out of their way to kind of come up with a digital event that might set the tone of events going forward. Because we don't see Marvel doing it at this
Yeah, they're
stage.
very hush hush right now.
Yeah, everything's like most things are happening like in a 30-minute like kind of chunk. So the first one is a Wonder Woman 1984 panel, so maybe we might get like a official time for when that's coming out, or maybe a structure in which people can watch that movie.
Or
If
they're gonna
it's not
finally
being
say it
delayed.
now it's on streaming, and they gave up
Yeah,
on it. Like they're just
yeah,
like,
exactly.
fine,
That's what
it's
I
on
mean.
streaming. Okay, we give up. You know.
Yeah, like it could very much be, hey, you can watch it right now, like or after after this panel finishes or whatever. Like it could be something as cool. It probably won't. It probably be after the fandom thing, but it could be something as easy as that, like, oh, it's coming out next weekend and you can buy it for X and Y. The next is Warner Brother Games Montreal announcement. So that's more than likely going to be the new Batman Arkham game or the Batman I think it's rumored to be called like Gotham Knights, but don't hold me to it. But that's what is currently being talked about. So I thought that was really cool because again, it is announcement. So I think we're going to probably be getting a trailer. We're going to be seeing what the game is about, and it is finally confirmed that we have both Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League by what is it, Rocksteady
Rocksteady.
Games, and we also have this game coming out from Warner Brothers Montreal. Now they did make Batman Arkham Origins, which I liked, but I know a lot of people felt kind of mediocre about it. I know they didn't like the whole Joker twist in it too, because people are like, oh, once again another game where Joker's the main bad guy or whatever. But I think Arkham Origins is a really good game, and I think that if they can come up with a good story and they're able to kind of build off, like if they have the same kind of tools and I guess gameplay elements of like Arkham Knight and stuff, like I'm sure they can come up with something pretty cool for the new series, especially if it's rumored to be about the Court of Owls. If that ends up being the story and the game that it's going to be based around, it's going to be amazing, I
Yeah,
reckon.
because
Or at least,
I remember reading that comic, the Court of Owls, kind of like like series. Yeah, and I just always I enjoyed that storyline of like an underground syndicate where it's like, oh, we've been here like since Gotham's origins more or less, and it's like, and I think yeah, it would just be really cool because like as you mentioned before, it will take away heat from like the Joker, and it kind of gives it as like kind of an organization to kind of take down, and yeah, just more Batman. I just want to see the evolution of, I guess, the combat. I guess because I feel like I think
yeah,
we kind of moved away slightly maybe from that type of combat, or there'll be a different type of combat. It'll be very interesting to like
I think it's probably going to be the same
like,
combat. I don't think it'll be.
or yeah, I hope they don't alienate it too much. I hope they're not like, oh, we're gonna Dark Souls the ever loving shit
No,
out of
it's not
this.
going to be that. No way. I think the main thing is it's going to be something that's going to still have the same core fighting mechanics. It's just going to have like maybe more focus. Because if it's going to be Court of Owls, one of the kind of themes about Court of Owls was like kind of the importance of family, right? So hopefully maybe this might give them more like openness to have other characters from the Batman kind of family. So maybe you could be like Robin rather than like that one moment you can be Robin, right? Like maybe there'll be like Robin specific missions that you can go out and now that we've kind of seen all of Gotham, because this is potentially like a reboot of the series, maybe Gotham's like even bigger now and it'll be more lively and maybe it might not all be situated at night. Maybe we might have like some daytime events as well. Who knows?
Yeah,
Anything's
it might be like what they do like in, for example, like in GTA 5, where it's like you have three characters, but you can at any time you can jump in and these characters are already doing something.
Yep,
So it's like,
right up
imagine
my
like you're
alley.
playing Batman, you're being a detective, but like you switch to Robin and he's just beating up people. And you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, and then you can all kind of meet up, and or maybe you can switch to like Batgirl as well, and then it kind of gives them the opportunity to do like skinning, right? Because like again, like you have Batman, but then Batman is always Batman, but then the Robins you can always like choose skins to be like Jason Todd, or you can be um Tim Drake, or one or if they're
Hey,
gonna
Nightwing.
yeah, Nightwing or whatever you want to be, right? And then same thing with Batgirl. Like if you like, Barbara Gordon, you can maybe change it to like Cassandra Cain or Stephanie Brown or one of the other kind of Batgirls there. It gives them a lot of openness to have like because that's something that's really cool with the Batman games is that you can have different skin options as well. So that's something that they can also do. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. the Sandman universe. So that's like a subsidiary series, which cool. It's good to see because again, they're going to be dispersing a lot of like general DC comic stuff amongst this too. Another one is like Multiverse 101, which I think Jeff Johns is on, but don't quote me for that. Introducing the Flash, the Suicide Squad panel. So this is based for the movie, and I think we're getting the director. I forget his name, but he's gonna
James
be
Gunn.
on that.
I'd assume
James Gunn.
there's gonna be some sort of trailer because
Yeah,
yeah,
there's gonna be a
that was supposed
trailer.
to come out by end of this year, so I'm assuming next year sometime. Like yeah, they'll definitely drop something.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, James Gunn hasn't really been in the public eye, like, ever since he got fired from, what is it,
Disney,
like,
but then
Disney,
they
and then
hired him
rehired,
back.
right? Yeah, exactly. So it's very crazy just to see what's going on. So, other kind of stuff that's coming out is the Zack Snyder cut Justice League panel. That seems to be a really cool thing. So we're gonna maybe get. I think there's like rumors of being like an actual proper trailer coming out for that. So that's really cool. Black Adam. Um,
Get the
we're
Rock
having.
going
Yep. The
finally.
Rock's gonna be on that one. Aquaman panel. And we're gonna later have a Shazam panel too. Suicide Squad. Kill the Justice League panel, obviously, and to round it out, like more the last kind of big panel is the Batman. So maybe we might get a trailer for the Batman movie too. So that's something really cool as well. There is also but like there's some stuff obviously in between. Like there's like a Harley Quinn one for like the Harley Quinn TV series as an animated series that came out. There's also like a Batman Beyond panel. So who knows what's going on in that department? Like oh maybe there's a movie, maybe there's a TV series,
Maybe
maybe
they
that's it. Who
finally
knows?
announced that like Henry Cavill's back for another Superman. Just do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, there's even like there's one that's highlighted. There's like a surprise DC Comics panel. So, there's a lot of kind of stuff that they are kind of still keeping like, tucked away and close to the chest, and that's kind of supposed to kind of get people excited about what's coming up. So, it's super cool that DC is doing it, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Um,
like because especially since I think a lot of these entertainment studios have kind of been very quiet. They're just like okay, everyone's marketing campaign is completely stuffed for like this year, and we're gonna shift everything. But we like I think like DC is probably doing the right way. Where like okay, we're gonna drum up hype again. But it's like for game wise, we've gotten a lot of reveals and things like that. And everyone's doing their own kind of events, which is kind of cool. But it's like movie side of things or TV side of things has kind of been kind of like I'd say semi lackluster. So it's good to see to be like DC is just gonna be like you know what, there's all the stuff that's coming out, movies, TV shows, comics, everything that's kind of coming out and what everyone's gonna happen. I would assume as well like the TV side of things, like they'll be like, oh yeah, this is renewed for another season, or like they'll finally be like, okay, we're gonna get rid of the DC app and finally put everything to HBO Max. So I'm assuming something like that will happen.
yeah, I would imagine, yeah, there'd be some aspect of that involved too. And I guess our final story is about Epic Games suing Apple. So essentially, Epic Games, I think, as a part of their uh, in-game app purchasing, implemented a separate purchasing option for, I think, to buy the in-game currency, so you can buy like skins and stuff like that, right? And it basically gave a bypass of purchasing something through the App Store and buying it directly through the Epic Game Store, which violated um, the Apple's terms of service, right? Because I think any purchase that happens in a game or through an app or something, Apple's supposed to get like a 30% cut or something from it. And essentially, I think like the price was like from $9.99 to $7.99, and the moment that I think both Apple and Google saw that, they kind of kicked both of those uh, you know the Fortnite app or the Epic Games app off the app stores, and it was definitely planned by Epic Games because they immediately released a bunch of social media posts and a video that was supposed to kind of mock the 1984 style video that Apple released like back in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, it
Um,
was actually in '84 because I think they were really first Mac at that time.
mhm.
Like it's actually really funny. It's like I saw that trailer and I thought it was really funny. I'm like okay, that's a funny dig at them. And then like
Mhm.
obviously, like, I told my sister about it. She's like, I saw that trailer, but I have no idea what it was about. Because like, I think there are some people who knew it was a parody, and other people were just like, I have no idea what the
Mm.
hell like the difference is. But yeah, I
Yeah,
thought that
yeah,
was really cool.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, definitely an interesting kind of situation. We'll see whether they win anything. The thing is, like with something like Apple in particular, like they in their terms of service and clauses, they make it very they want to kind of restrict exactly what is sold on their platform, right? Because it's curated by Apple, right? They curate their ecosystem very tightly, and that includes getting a cut, of money. And if you don't play by their rules, they don't like it. But you see, it'd be interesting to see because I don't know what the legal arguments about it is, like whether it's like Apple monopolizing content on their platform rather than allowing for third-party app stores. That might be like what they might be trying to argue there. But yeah, for the most part, um, I don't know. It's like I don't, there's probably a lot of people who enjoy playing Fortnite on mobile, which are obviously suffering because of this. But
Yeah, a lot of
it's
kids
like
will be angry right now.
yeah, yeah. But I'm sure there are other games that they can play in the meantime. And that's what I've been doing. And we'll get to my first review. I recently played. I was supposed to review it last episode, but it was I've been playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now I've been playing the PSP version because essentially I don't have a PlayStation. This was like the first. I believe it's the first Castlevania game that came out on a PlayStation. And this particular game kind of set the tone for all future Castlevania games that came after. And it's definitely very noticeable because even for me, I've only kind of really played the newer Castlevania games, but playing this game, it's like it makes a lot of sense. It still has a lot of the DNA of like the original kind of Castlevania games, like collecting like the little hearts, and they have like a separate like ability that I was like initially being like, what is this? Why is this different from the mana magic system and stuff? But yeah, like to kind of explain the plot, it's basically your Alucard, which is the son of Dracula. Dracula's name spelled backwards too. Um, and he kind of returns back to he returns to Castle Dracula after seeing the castle return after 100 years. It's kind of a thing that happens within the cycle of the Castlevania
In
universe.
Castlevania lore.
Yeah, and so he's kind of there to try and vanquish his father again, but then he kind of sees that his father isn't actually ruling the tower. Like, what's bring it back? And so it's all about him trying to investigate and go through the dungeon and figure out the mystery behind all the creatures that are there. And you kind of start off like being super strong, but then death kind of steals all your weapons and your items, so you're like kind of back to square one, and you have to kind of fight through the castle and explore everything that's happening. I can definitely see why this game was so popular back in 1997, and the fact that it still holds up, and it isn't like Nintendo hard or anything. I think that it is still in the same vein of like Castlevania, but a lot of the mechanics are very different from the later games. Like there's like a dodge mechanic because he's like a his vampire ability gives him like oh yes, because Alucard is half vampire, so he does still have a lot of abilities that reflect his half vampireness. As you kind of go through the games and take souls of certain and get certain abilities, you become more stronger. It's really cool. Obviously, it's quite an older game, but I would recommend if you haven't played Castlevania, any of the Castlevania games, that you should probably start with this one because it seems to be the one that kind of starts it all for the Castlevania series.
Yeah, I've heard like I haven't played it for a very long time, but I'm assuming because from what I've heard of other people, even someone like you, it's like I would assume because yeah, it's got good gameplay. I guess it coined the kind of Metroidvania. It kind of did that type of
Hmm.
splitting paths, going back and forth, going to a path that was originally blocked and going back to it. I would just say, as far as I know, and obviously you can tell me about it, but from what I can tell, it's still a relatively like modern-ish type game where it's like it's still like if this got released like today, it still would be like it'd still be like okay, cool, like there's so many games that obviously it took from it. Obviously, Bloodstained is pretty much I would say
Yeah.
a spiritual successor to it. Would you say like they kind of had the more or less semi the same gameplay, or like if this game was
Well,
released now, it would be like, oh yeah, like I wouldn't notice. Like it is very modern, I would say.
well, yeah. I believe I think it's like the creator. I think the director Koji Igarashi. He he's kind of helped develop this game, and he's eventually went on to produce a lot of the later um, Castlevania games that were kind of well known. So for me, that would be like Aria of Sorrows, Dawn of Sorrows, Portrait of Ruin, Order of Shadows. Those are all had him either like writing or producing on it. They all have like his kind of DNA, and he kind of went on to then make the Bloodstained games. So he's actually the producer and writer of both uh, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night and Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. And I think there's a new Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 coming out too, which I believe he's probably also the producer and writer for as well. And especially with that was part of the reason why those games were funded in the first place, because people saw, oh hey, like um, Koji is producing it. He's the one who's like promoting the Kickstarter and all that, and so people are like, oh well, yeah, I'm definitely going to buy this game because he's kind of responsible for the previous Castlevania games, and Konami is kind of not really doing anything with the property at the moment, which is very unfortunate. And so subsequently, he's kind of gone off to make his own thing and do his own thing because Konami isn't doing anything with the property, so he's just going to basically make his own kind of knockoff version of it. But uh, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, really, really, really cool game. I haven't played Curse of the Moon, but I've heard good things about it too.
Well, it sounds like you've pretty much gone through like all of the new modern Castlevania games and gone through them. Have you played any of like the old ones, like the original Castlevania, Castlevania 4, which I would say is
I remember playing like maybe like the NES Castlevania game, because I had like when I was younger I had like a SNES emulator, so a Super Nintendo entertainment system emulator, and it had like a bunch of games on it, and like that's where I played like Chrono Trigger, and that's where I played like a bunch of like random games, Bomberman and stuff. But yeah, I didn't really play too much of Castlevania because I was like, this seems kind of lame, which which
in
obviously I was a
retrospect, you're
young
like, wait
kid.
a second, this series is actually kind of cool.
But I think like the older games are definitely very different towards the compared to the newer games, and it started being like kind of that Metrovania kind of style of game with Symphony of the Night. So I think like yeah, that's probably why I enjoy Symphony of the Night in particular. And then probably like Aria of Sorrows and Dawn of Sorrows. Those ones like I like the mechanic for. But again, I'd have to go back and probably play Portrait of Ruin and stuff. I don't remember it as well because it's
I,
like
I, I
maybe
do.
I didn't
Yeah, I
remember it.
just because I remember. Yeah, yeah, obviously there was like two people with you, is the guy and the girl, and you used to
Yeah, I
switch. You
remember
used
that.
to switch back and forth, kind of to do puzzles. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was an interesting take. And then obviously you go inside the portraits, and they're in the kind of own little semi world. It's kind of like a basically Mario 64 style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a way, right? But yeah, that's my review for Symphony of the Night. It's been something that I've been wanting to play for a while, just because like everyone just talks about how amazing this game is, and yeah, it is a good game. Like definitely, especially now that people know how to play the game, like inside and out. Like maybe it kind of loses a lot of its luster compared to like the newer games, but I think it holds up significantly in terms of like graphics, story, and stuff like that. So would highly recommend Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and I will be playing in the meantime Horizon Zero Dawn, which finally came out on PC, which I'm really liking.
Yeah, and then you could say in itself, like that's like the modern like. It's really cool to at least see like a PlayStation 4 game on a PC.
Oh
And
yes,
that's
and it
that's the
should be
future.
beautiful on PC too. Like I'm sure it looks good on a PS4, but like I don't know, nothing beats like these games coming out on PC. They just look beautiful, man. It's so
Yes,
cool.
PC Master Race here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that review. For me, I've basically been using my time to kind of watch stuff that it's kind of always been in my backlog. I've kind of heard some good things about it and never really got to it because at the current moment, it's kind of like not many movies are coming out. Definitely not really too many TV shows are coming out weekly now. So it's kind of like, okay, I guess it's time to kind of see what I've always kind of wanted to watch and finally do it. And I kind of binge watched a show that I've wanted to be watched for a very long time. It's a sci-fi show called Dark Matter. This originally came out in 2015. It lasted 3 seasons until 2017. And the general
Mhm.
premise of it is obviously set in the future, where I guess 6 people on a ship wake up and they have no recollection of who they are or how they got there. And the I guess mystery, especially in the first season, is who are they, and I guess why did they wake up with amnesia? Um, and
That's what I'd be wondering if I woke up with amnesia.
exactly. So yeah, it kind of sets the stage of like, they're in a spaceship and like who the hell are we, and why are we here? And last 3 seasons, it did get unfortunately canceled after the third season, and it didn't have a, I guess, complete wrap up. There's a lot of still mystery. But I knew this going into it, so I kind of did it to myself, where it's like I'm invested into these characters, and now I don't know the true ending of it. But that's my own fault. But at least I'm glad that I did watch this show because I actually did enjoy it. I'd say it kind of has the same ill fate of something like a Firefly, and it's the same type of feeling as a Firefly. Because I think the show, what it does really well is get you invested into these characters, and who they are. Because obviously there's an overall arcing theme that's going on through the rest of the series. Like obviously there's an intergalactic war that's going on, as well as there's a, I guess, quote unquote alien parasite that is infecting people's bodies. Um,
Oh,
and,
okay.
and that is kind of like kind of the main backdrop of the story. But obviously, the show is really well. The show pretty much focuses on its characters, and I think that's what it excels the most at. Because obviously you reveal, since they are trying to reveal who they are, or what they previously used to be like. There are episodes where it goes back into a lot of their, I guess, past. For example, one of the characters, he didn't know he had a love interest. So up until
Oh,
like
okay.
the halfway through season 2, he was like, wait a second, there's a girl that I fell in love with, and it's him trying to come to into grips with that. A lot of the actual characters are actually bad people. And because their spaceship is called the Raza. And they actually have a reputation of being actually really bad bounty hunters and actually
Oh,
like
okay.
murdering people. And they obviously they're just like, what the hell? We're not these types of people. And there's actually one episode where they all switch back to their previous selves. And one of the girls doesn't. She's kind of scared for her life because she's like, you guys are assholes in your actual like modern type. So I guess it's kind of them dealing with who they are and who they want to be and what type of secrets that they kind of want to, I guess, reveal. I guess one of the characters, I would say, for example, they're named after, I guess, numbers, so like 1 to 6. Yeah, so number 4, he actually learns about his true self and who he truly is. I mean, he's actually an exiled prince, from I guess his kingdom, because he got framed for his father's murder. So there's, and he's the one who he acts upon his previous self the most, and while the rest of the characters are trying to kind of establish who they kind of are and who they really want to be. But either way, I really enjoyed the show. There are some really great, amazing moments of the show. For example, it as I mentioned, it kind of reminds me of the kind of the Joss Whedon type thing, where each character has kind of like their type of thing, where you have the small kind of young nerdy girl, but she's kind of interesting. You've got the hard ass type of girl. You've got the android that's kind of really funny because obviously she's an android, but she's kind of also self like half human at the same time. So she's kind of a defective android. You've kind of got all these good character stereotypes, and they kind of work off well from one another. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I do enjoy this show, is because yeah, I just enjoy the characters bouncing off each other, and how they act. It is unfortunate that the show did end, but as I mentioned, I am glad that I did watch the show, because they have really good, I guess, they got good moments, good character development. It is a good, interesting, I guess, world, I guess, because it is set in the future, where, for example, like the number 4, as I mentioned, he's a prince. That's kind of he kind of follows this very Japanese model where they have samurai swords in the future. So it's a very interesting, I guess, take on that. Um, But yeah, overall, I'd say at least try to check. Like I'm happy I did. I enjoyed the show. It is unfortunate that it did get canceled, and if I guess you're one of those people who doesn't care if you don't have a complete story. For example, the young girl, number 5, we don't get her full story backstory. I think that was going to be fully revealed in season 4, where they show these quote unquote black ships, and she actually has siblings that she didn't know about. Um, so, I guess that's kind of a mystery that would never be revealed. But if you're okay with that, I'd say go ahead and watch this show because I'm glad I did. And I guess it follows the line of like sci-fi canceling shows that probably shouldn't have been canceled. For example, like The Expanse.
Yeah.
Maybe they did cancel this show because of Expanse, but I'm not quite sure on that.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I'm very happy I did watch it, and I guess the next one on my list is also very the same. It's also a sci-fi show. It's called Killjoys. I heard that's more like a sci-fi bounty hunter type of thing as well. I might give that a look as well because that's kind of been on my list of kind of watching it as
Yeah,
well.
there's a bunch of shows that kind of seem like kind of the same. Like there's like another one that's called like Vagrant Queens or something like that, and that has like another show that got cancelled that seemed really similar too. I remember there was like a social media kind of thing about it. So yeah, like they do try and like I think sci-fi obviously wants to have like a serial sci-fi show that is like really good quality that they want to kind of keep repeating for people to watch, but they don't seem to commit to anything just yet. And also at the same time, maybe the shows themselves aren't super amazing. But yeah, it's sad to see that again, sci-fi seems to suffer a lot when it comes to this kind of stuff being cancelled a bit before their prime, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I have heard like Killjoys is a full story. I
Oh,
think that
that's good.
I think that does run for 5 seasons. I think it just got recently canceled. I think last year. But
Okay.
I've heard good things. I think it's more of a I guess lighthearted look at like I guess it's more like Firefly than actual like Dark Matter, which is at times can be I guess serious because it's dealing with I guess people and their
Mhm.
backstory and how tragic they
I,
are. Right. Um.
Yeah, because I think even like the Orville is kind of rumored to be finishing after this season as well. Like the rumor is season 3 is like the final season, which is such a shame because I hope it isn't because I really really enjoy um the Orville, but I think because Seth MacFarlane's like doing other stuff, and there's also all these rumors about like are they gonna try and recruit Seth MacFarlane to make a Star Trek series and stuff like that. There's all these kind of rumors here and there. I hope like if he does leave, I hope they just kind of get like another main like character to kind of replace him as a captain or something for the later seasons because I think there's a lot of really cool stuff in that world and the story that they do there.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it would be really shame to kind of get rid of a world that's kind of built up like these different alien races, everything. It's like it's really shame to just kind of ditch like a whole world and a universe because like maybe budgetary reasons or the main person can't do it because I think that's kind of maybe the thing with Seth MacFarlane where it's like for example he voices like a lot of the voices in something like Family Guy, so he's kind of always there in the creative process of like the jokes. That's why maybe
that's
you
true.
you can say that Family Guy is very consistent in its quality,
Yeah.
while something like Simpsons, like Mac Groening and kind of like the Al Jean, who's all the main people who did Simpsons, Futurama, they left long time ago, so that's why it kind of has a different feel. Whilst like Family Guy has I would say, steady feel of exactly what the type of I guess genre it is.
Makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. And yeah, my final review would be for a movie that I was really happy to see, and I would say it's been in production for a very long time. Because if you ever saw that meme of Daniel Radcliffe with two guns with like his pajamas, and he's just screaming. I don't know if anyone saw that meme, but
Yeah, I saw. I didn't know it was a meme, but I remember seeing the image and just thinking, what's going on? What's going on in this
yeah, I
picture?
remember that got showed like I don't know, like 2 or 3 years ago, and we finally get to see what the movie is from, and that's Guns Akimbo. This is a New Zealand film. The reason why I do that is because of the writer and director of this film. He also did Deathgasm, which is actually one of the I guess like cult following type films that I really enjoyed. Where Deathgasm's kind of about these two boys who start a band that is like demonic. They find this kind of like I guess Necromenon. I can never say that one.
Necronomicon.
Necronomicon. Yep, that one. And basically they summon the devil. But they actually think it's just lyrics to like a death metal band. And that's how they make
Okay.
their music. And like the guy's comedy humor, I would say, is kind of like a Taika Waititi almost. It's funny as they're both from New Zealand, so it's kind of like this kind of like funny esque but kind of serious at the same time. And Guns Akimbo kind of does the same thing, where it's basically a guy who's in a moderator in a chat forum for this game. He pisses off the wrong people, and he has to compete in this game. Which is kind of basically a battle royale type game. He gets forced to do it because he has to help his girlfriend who got kidnapped. And so he's basically forced into this game to be like, oh shit, it's a like a real life battle royale where people are actually watching on their phones. And so it's kind of got this kind of like almost like Running Man-esque type of feel to it as well, where people are watching these people kill each other. But that's kind of like the modern world. But it kind of has that kind of style of, but it's got that, but it's also got kind of a style of Ready Player One, because the guy, as I mentioned before, he's a moderator at a video game chat. So it has these in-game references. There's a lot of references to other type games or things like that. As someone who is in that kind of genre and in that type of atmosphere, it is really kind of cool to see. And there's a lot of in-jokes. And I actually really enjoyed the film. I like these are the type of films that I really enjoy and really like, where they're genre type films. Maybe it doesn't try to take itself too seriously and just like, here's the premise, just go for it. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Where I think the action is actually shot really well. I'd say it's very action, popcorny, popcorn action in the sense of they always have like some sort of pop music playing in the background whilst people are actually getting killed, like actually fun music getting played while people are getting killed like brutally.
Yep.
So it's got some cool stuff like that. Daniel Radcliffe does a really good job as playing some guys as psycho, because what happens is they kind of drill the guns to his hands, so he can't like talk on the phone. He can't like try to help people, or like in the trailer, like, for example, like he tries to go to the police and say like, but obviously he has guns stapled to his hands, so like they think he's trying to kill him.
Yeah.
There's all these types of situations where he just gets completely screwed over, and he has to kind of solve it by himself. And so essentially the main reason why he's getting hunted is because he pissed off the wrong person in the wrong chat. And so they get this person called Nix, who's like a top tier player, who's assassin, is like, yeah, just go after this guy. And obviously, yeah, they kind of had their whole like spat back and forth. That's played by actress Samara Weaving, who is Australian, and she's very upcoming. She did that film Ready or Not, which is also another genre type film that I really loved. So she's kind of getting up there in the ranks of I guess acting and things like that. So you'll definitely see more and more of her coming out. She does a good performance as well. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this film. It's one of those films where you can just kind of watch and kind of watch again. It just has it's just really cool and entertaining. Of like it's high action, fast paced, and it's kind of like it's kind of one of those things where it's like you're going to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. It doesn't really give much of a breather. And yeah, I just love the concept of people in this battle royale. And this guy who has no action skills whatsoever, no killing skills, no assassin skills, coming out of nowhere and being like, okay, I have to outsmart everyone rather than just going straight in for the kill. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. As I mentioned, quite funny as well. I would say it kind of has more gamer humor to it, so if you don't kind of get a lot of gamer references, maybe it goes through over your head, so you might be like, yeah, whatever. But really enjoyed the movie, and I think it's one of those also hidden gems as well, that this guy also targets as well. So I'd say go watch Guns Akimbo, and I'd say go watch Deathgasm, because both of them have the same type of style. And yeah, I kind of want more from this guy. It looks like he kind of does a project once every 4 or 5 years, or whatever he feels like he wants to do, which is kind of good. Like at the current moment, he has nothing kind of really aligned up, but hopefully he has like I guess some sort of idea that he wants to move forward, because this guy's style is very interesting, very different. He's kind of like I guess the easiest way to explain it, he's a very like indie version of Edgar Wright before, like I'd say like the first Shaun of the Dead film. He kind of has that type of style where it's kind of serious but funny at the same time, and kind of got the quick cuts and everything like that. So I really enjoyed this guy's style, and hopefully he makes more movies. So I guess give both of them a watch. Definitely recommend them. Especially if you want something that's action and fast paced. But yeah, that's going to be us for this week. Remember, you can always listen to us on Libsyn, iTunes, and this channel, Marketing Movies, and Spotify. So until next time, maybe next week we'll see if Henry Cavill's still playing Superman. So until next time, see you guys.
Catch ya.